government, entertainment, and more. In the coming weeks and months, services will be further digitized as creativity of massive work from home population gets rolling. Tammy Irwin of CEO of Verizon said, I don't think we will go sit in a doctor's waiting room when we are sick again. We will use telemedicine. The technology that's available will change healthcare, will change education, will change a lot of things. To sum it up, Satya Nadella, CEO of Microsoft, said, we saw 2 years of digital transformation in 2 months. However, friends, are we really likely to do everything online? Are we going to shop online, study online, order food online, watch content and movies online, and to top it off, work from home? Are we likely to not get out and go out at all? Is this the end or beginning of the end for traditional retail, theaters, traditional huddle rooms with conventional VC setup? To answer these questions and many more, we have veterans from AV and IT industry. Let me give you a short introduction. Let me start with Kelvin Ashby-King, a leading consultant. Kelvin has been in lighting industry for over 30 plus years and is principal consultant, managing director for T2 Consulting Group, which has offices throughout Asia and Middle East. T2 specializes in architectural lighting, audiovisual, acoustic, ICT, IoT design consulting. Kelvin started his career as theater lighting and sound designer, but soon moved on into project and architectural lighting. Kelvin specializes in theater, auditorium, and museum and heritage projects, but earns his living in the mainstream corporate world. Welcome, Kelvin. Our next panelist is Bharath, representing OEM community. Bharath, with more than 17 years of AV industry experience, is managing director at Kramer Electronics. Kramer Electronics is leading player and pioneer in pro AV industry. Bharath completed his BE in mechanical engineering and higher studies from IIM Bangalore in 2014 and started his career with Z-Learn and became VP of ESCO Audiovisuals Limited. Welcome, Bharath. Nice to have you with us. Next up, we have Kaushik Mukhopadhyay, a prominent AV system integrator from Bangalore. Kaushik is MD and CEO of AVID, founded in 2008, became the most award-winning AV system integrators in Asia. Kaushik has a bachelor degree in physics and a postgraduate honors in system management. With 26 years of hardcore experience in industry, Kaushik is already well-known personality in AV circles across Asia Pacific. Thank you, Kaushik, to join us. Our next panelist is Mr. Rajeev Krishnaswamy, a prominent IT SI with focus on digital signage from Mumbai. Rajeev is director of Infobahn Technology Solutions since 1998, with bachelor's degree in electronics and communication and MBA from IIM Ahmedabad. Rajeev Krishnaswamy is dynamic personality with combined knowledge both in technical and management field, with over 25 years of industry experience. Welcome. Nice to have you, Rajeev. Our fifth panelist is Mr. Vibhor Khanna from Audio OEM community. Vibhor is experienced business leader with over 20 years of experience in sales and business development of audio video products. Currently, Vibhor is country manager of SAARC region at Bose Professionals. And IIM pass out, Vibhor is a dynamic team leader with passion and drive to deliver growth beyond normal market trends. We look forward to you, Vibhor, to guide us in this time. Welcome. Lastly, we have Mr. Aditya Todi, also representing audio OEM community. Aditya is a senior director and business head at Professional Solutions in Harman, India. He has been with Harman for over 5 years and has been instrumental in helping Harman grow in India with multiple customer initiatives. He's a qualified chartered accountant and have a multiple finance and commercial roles with his last stint as CFO of Harman India. He has also been associated with IT giants like Wipro and Cisco in past 18 years. Welcome, Aditya. Nice to have you with us.
Thank you.
Friends, as you can see, we have a power-packed panel. So without further ado, let's get started. Let me start with you, Kelvin. What do you think is the impact of COVID on AV industry? And what are the emerging trends in technology that we should adopt for this new normal? Over to you, Kelvin.
Well, I think it's very clear what the impact is. We've shut our industry down in the last 8 to 10 weeks. And there are huge questions on when we're going to be able to open the industry again fully. When will building sites, when will our customers commence work? Well, I think for the next few months, things are going to be okay. We're signing, as a consultancy, we're signing new projects. We're back at work. We've worked all the way through. But I think there are a lot of issues that are going to come 6 months down the line. And while I don't want to be negative, I think we need to be realistic about what the future holds. We are definitely, as you quoted Modi and various other people, looking at a very, very new future. We're looking at a very new way of doing work. And I think we all need to be agile. We need to be flexible, and we need to adapt probably faster than the general market to what is going to happen. A lot of people are asking me what will happen, and I honestly don't have an answer for that at the moment. I'm looking at my own business. I'm talking to other people about what they think, but I think this is very much going to be, we take it one step at a time, as in terms of our businesses, and we will adapt to what goes on. We did it after 9/11. We did it after World War I, World War II. And if you look at each of those things, the world came back in some ways much, much stronger. So I'm looking at this as a positive time. It's giving us a chance to reevaluate our business, direction our business is taking, and how we want to change it for the new future. I think in terms of technology, yes, I think there's going to be a certain amount of movement to work from home. I think there is going to be certainly a new way of interacting with customers. I don't expect to be flying. I would have normally done 20 to 30 flights in the last 2 months, and it's the first time in my memory that I haven't been actually flying or traveling. I've been at home for nearly 9-10 weeks now. I haven't left the house except yesterday, and the barber's was closed. But I think from a technology point of view, work from home, more offline. I think a lot of people got caught out that they weren't set up for remote working. So from the IT perspective, a lot more remote working technology will get put in place. And I think our way that we do business, while we have been shifting from face-to-face meetings to online meetings for some time, I think that the last 2 months have taught us that this actually can be the normal, and actually visiting and doing face-to-face meetings will actually, I believe, become the non-normal. So, yeah, I think we're yet to really see what sort of technologies will emerge to take care of the work from home more clearly. We do have products that are applicable for it, but a lot of that is commercially orientated, and I believe manufacturers will start very much looking to see how to address this market with scaled down equipment to provide a better environment for working from home. There was one other thing which I've forgotten now. Oh no, let the next person go.
Thanks, Kelvin. I think we all can agree that we've been talking as panelists, that all of us have been more busy in the COVID scenario than before, and we all have learned how productive online meetings can be. So obviously there is going to be a behavioral change going forward, and more people will adopt to this medium more often, and there is going to be a less need to travel physically and meet physically, as you said. And as you said, yeah, rightly, we all need to be more agile. and more agile than most other businesses. So thank you, Kelvin. Kaushik, would you like to add your on what Kelvin has said? What is the impact of COVID on AV and the emerging technology trends that you see forward?
Yes, of course. I have a very logical view to this whole problem. And you see, AVIXA, our industry association, has been publishing a monthly Pro AV business index since 2016, the last 4 years. This primarily gauges sales and employment indicators for our industry. Now, the index is actually calculated from monthly surveys that tracks trends. Now, two diffusion indices are created using this data. One is the AV sales index, and the other is the AV employment index. For the first time since 2016, for the last 4 years now, the last 2 months has been showing a decline in the degrowth in the AV sales index. And as we all know, as COVID-19 has forced billions of people into a lockdown and to a physical isolation, demand for anything other than essential goods or services has been a secondary priority. It's just completely stopped. So for the result of that is in Pro AV, I mean, there has been a decline in sales, obviously. It's a very logical thing to happen. And just not isolated only to Pro AV, this is true for any services industry worldwide. Coming closer home, this has actually resulted for any businesses of any size to not being able to bill, whatever we do. So a lack of billing would mean a lack of earning of revenue. So this has certainly hit cash flows for most businesses. It's a very simple arithmetic. You have your expenses, you have no income, and depending upon the size of the organization, the cash reserves they might have, and their appetite for how long they can sustain, I mean, organizations are definitely hit. Now, so this is a very logical impact, on the industry. And if you actually see how it all started, even if you're ready, for example, now the slowdown, the lockdown has been lifted. I mean, lockdown has not been lifted, lockdown has been eased, and hopefully coming Monday, even if it gets lifted, we do not know if sites are worthy of or safe for us to deploy manpower and to start to reinstate our services. We just don't know that yet. Somebody has to give that undertaking. It has to be safe. So you see what has happened in these 2 months, and all this has happened in the last 25 odd days. What has happened in the last 2 months is that projects that were acquired and which were built up in our kitty are waiting to get built. We have been unable to build. Projects which were in the design stage or in a stage in which probably things were getting specified, etc. Corporations have decided to give that a lower priority and have prioritized probably their salaries or their statutories, etc., on a higher priority. And therefore, those have taken precedence. And projects that were on a needs analysis stage has probably been frozen. So what has happened is this has created an effect on the distributors and the manufacturers. On one hand, the manufacturers possibly would have gone and looked back at their forecasts. They would not be able to ship either on their own or due to government restrictions of closing down airspaces, airlines, shipping boats, etc. So all this has got a cascading effect. It's a very logical thing to happen. Now we must understand that this is a very different scenario from what happened in 2008. So our problem currently is more of socio than economic. But because it's a logical problem, I am of the very firm view that we have seen the beginning. We are perhaps passing through a mid stage, and we'll certainly see an end very soon, hopefully. So yeah, that's my view on how logically it has impacted our industry. And in terms of emerging trends for the new normal, these 60 days has taught us so many things. I mean, we have seen an unprecedented growth on usage of very advanced forms of video conferencing to start with, in all spheres in our daily lives, students, e-learning, telemedicine, in all aspects of life. And everyone knows about Zoom numbers. Zoom claimed that they had 10 million calls a day in end December, which has gone up to 200 million calls a day end of March. Mind-boggling numbers. Cisco WebEx in the first 11 days of March had actually recorded, they have a different way of calculating, but 5.5 billion with a B, 5.5 billion minutes of video conferencing the first 11 days of March. Microsoft Teams, they say they have 1,000% growth month on month in March. So video conferences is booming in all forms, hard and soft. Next, what has also happened is, this will eventually, encourage more and more advanced learning technologies, augmented and virtual reality and so on and so forth. This will also prompt IoT, which is already booming, because IoT would be less of human interaction and more of efficiency through accurate and advanced data analysis. We have seen robots are disinfecting rooms. They're interacting with isolated patients. They're serving medicines. We have seen drones are patrolling, public areas. They are doing surveillance. They're doing facial recognition. They're probably also being used to spray disinfectants. They're using infrared technology to scan facial features and then isolate or do whatever is required for social distancing. Governments are deploying surveillance technologies to do whatever is required to bring things back to normal. So, gesture, artificial intelligence, machine learning, these will become more predominant. And I think that will set the new normal. And who will do all this? We, us, the AV community. Who else can deliver that? So I think this is what we have to see as a new normal in coming days.
Yeah, I think innovation is the new normal. Change is the new normal. And you brought up a very pertinent point, important point of cash flow, I think, and how it's important for each one of us as an organization, as an individual, as a family. I think the impact of incoming or the billing stopped and your expenses ongoing has a cascading impact, which all of us as business leaders have to plan for. So we have got a view from the consultant community, system integrator. Vibhor, would you like to? I've spoken to you, and you have a very specific views on technologies, emerging technologies, and impact of AV of COVID on AV. From OEM's perspective, would you like to share your thoughts on this?
Sanket. So, well, if I talk about the impact on the AV industry because of COVID, so I would like, I'm basically an optimistic person, but yes, there are some not so good things which will happen. So like all of us have seen, last 2 months we've been sitting at home, nothing has been happening. So certainly there'll be major loss of business in Q1 due to the countrywide lockdown. And moreover, if I talk about tier 1 cities, they're right now in the red zone. So this lockdown potentially is going to extend, which will further cause delay in projects. There'll be manpower issues. So, Kaushik said that, we have a lot of shipments to be made to various customers. I envisage that they'll sort of get delayed. Obviously, because of this, we have a cash crunch problem. There'll be delay in payments. SMEs will most of it be affected, and most of our AV dealers fall under the SME category. If you look at the dollar and the euro exchange rate, that's sort of misbehaving. This will impact product pricing, certainly. Verticals like tourism, hospitality, entertainment, these will sort of be hit badly, and AV supports a lot of these verticals. Well, also there will be an impact on our portable and rental verticals for pro audio as such, if you talk about, because that's sort of a big vertical for pro audio. So there will be restrictions on gatherings. So obviously there'll be no shows, no marriages would be on a limited scale. So obviously it'll affect that industry. Well, talking about some positives, well, if you look at the tier 1 and the tier 2 and the tier 3 cities, there is less impact. So maybe, things will start moving quite quickly in these cities. There will certainly be an increased demand for remote workplace equipment, which will sort of change infrastructure requirements for offices post-COVID. New verticals where government funding would come would be education, healthcare, disaster management, and people would start investing into their homes, certainly. Well, talking about emerging technologies in the new normal, so these will be sort of trends. So if I talk about remote workspace collaboration, which the panelist Kelvin and Kaushik have talked about, so well, everybody has been using platforms like MS Teams and Zoom. Workplace will see a shift from traditional video conferencing to cloud-based solutions, which would certainly cut down on infrastructure cost, thus eliminating the need of physical infrastructure. My thought is that these solutions should be focusing on being flexible, agile, secure, and cost-effective. Obviously, the next thing that comes into mind is from an AV perspective, as AV integrators, as our AV industry, what should we be thinking about? So I think physical meeting rooms in terms of AV setup would sort of need a dynamic change in the thought process and in terms of requirement capturing. So if you look at eventually in the new normal, the government has stated that there should be social distancing. So which means there should be a 6 feet distance between both. So currently, if you look at many spaces like boardrooms or conference rooms, they're not well equipped for social distancing. So what happens is, just to take an example, if I talk about the VC camera, it's not able to capture the room totally if we have social distancing in mind. So what we really need to do as AV integrators or as the AV industry, we need to ask questions to customers that are the microphones enough in the room to pick up audio for every corner of the room so that we don't lose intelligibility. Secondly, can the VC camera cover the entire room? Because social distancing will involve people sitting with quite a distance. So maybe there's a need of multiple cameras. Well, other technologies where AV can be used is if I talk about telemedicine. Now, telemedicine allows healthcare professionals to diagnose patients in remote locations via video calls through using your handphones. So, in fact, if you look at startups like Prato or Labite, these companies facilitate these kind of medical checkups over video calls. So there is an opportunity for AV with the hospital telemedicine OPDs, which are going to come up, wherein we have to equip them with systems who can support all of this activity that can be done. Then next is about online education for schools and colleges. So commonly termed as EdTech. This has turned to be a new bare essential overnight. Suddenly we've seen this sector explode. We have kids at home, all of them are busy with the Zoom or the Microsoft Team classes. I hear a lot of discussion in government wherein there is going to be a bill passed, which is going to ensure that 30% of the learning will be over online. So if I talk about AV industry as an opportunity, there will certainly be an opportunity in schools and colleges to provide setups for these schools to carry out online teaching sessions. The next, I think Kaushik pointed out about surveillance technologies. So yes, these days, this is one of the things which is very important as a technology. If I look at the scenario these days, if you switch on the news channels, you'll find a lot of panicking patients fleeing the hospitals, violating home quarantine. Authorities have been forced to sort of adopt these surveillance technologies. So cell phones are being used to fight COVID. So Indian government has developed the Arogya Setu app, just like Singapore's Trace Together. If I talk about another technology, it's called the geofencing technology. It creates a virtual boundary of alarms of any time a mobile device moves beyond that boundary, the alarm sort of strikes up. Then if you talk about drones, yes, drones are aerial surveillance is being commonly used. Police and civic authorities are using it. These can also be used for sanitization, spraying disinfectants. Lastly, I think because of all these technologies, I think IT security will become a very important thing for corporates, for offices, because while we're using all these cloud-based VC solutions, the IT teams need to ensure that we take appropriate measures by things like using a powerful VPN, encrypting files, encouraging best practices to users to change their passwords regularly. So I think these are sort of the trends which will prevail in the post-COVID time. And the AV industry will take benefit out of all of these and create opportunities. So that's all from my side.
I hope, as you said, this is the process of creative destruction. So as few industries get impacted and go out of the limelight, few other industries or opportunities emerge, like telemedicine, like edtech, like surveillance. So I hope this is a process of creative destruction where new opportunities will emerge and we all are there to benefit from it. Rajeev, I think I know you for many years now. You come from a IT background, IT system integrator, one of the largest for HP partners in India. So according to you, how does COVID impact our industry, and how is the consumer behavior impacted in general, and what is its impact on the consumption patterns?
I mean, I concur with all my fellow panelists that it has already, we are facing the brunt of the COVID-19 crisis. It has impacted us really seriously. But picking up from all the technologies that Kelvin, Vibhor, and Kaushik said, I would look at it that we in the IT and the AV industry space are a very sweet spot where we can actually go out and implement these technologies. So what I feel is, instead of repeating all of the stuff what the earlier panelists have said, I would look at it: how do we skill ourselves, use this time, the downtime that we are sitting at home, and learn a lot of new technologies. We should be ready to hit the ground running as and when the lockdown opens up, and we should be able to help onboard our customers with these technologies at a very fast pace. I think that will really help the industry overall. It will help our customers, do better with their own customers, and it will help the industry overall. Coming to the consumer behavior part is what you're talking of. Okay, so you can kind of bucket it up into many segments, but I'll just take a couple of them. One is the behavior of people at a personal level. So there have been a lot of changes in our day-to-day life, like the way we meet up with people, the way we greet people. It's currently only online. Okay, so there would be changes in the way we would commute and travel once we start getting back to work. There would be a lot of changes in the way we talk to our colleagues at office, the way we sit and behave and have our lunch. I remember every day in the office we all get together to have lunch. I don't know if that's going to be possible once we get back to work. So that it could change to that. One more way, the way behavior is going to change is by the policies. A lot of policy changes would bring in a lot of behavior changes. Let me give you some examples. Okay? After 9/11, that's when the World Trade Center was bombed with aeroplanes. Aviation security became a very, very strict thing. So we could actually see that people adjusted to that new way of work. They accepted that aviation security is a thing which is going to stay, and they accepted the fact. So going forward, I think post-COVID, because this is again a big shock that the world has gone through, there are going to be a lot of changes in the behavior, the way we work, the way we talk, the way we do everything is going to change. So there could be changes at the policy level, there could be changes in attitudes, there could be changes in the way we emphasize on things, a lot of stuff. So I think that's how we have to kind of gear ourselves up. We have to kind of start thinking, learn, use this opportunity, and start scaling ourselves up. Back to you, Sanket.
Yeah, exactly. I think there are some changes which will stick. There are some changes which will be forgotten. Humans have a capacity to forget disasters very fast. That's a good thing. That's allowed us to survive also. But there are certain changes, as you mentioned, which will be structural in nature, which will stick with us because they just made us realize that this is a new way of doing things, and this is more productive, or this is more constructive, this is more beneficial. So I think some of the changes like virtual meetings and productivity changes will stick with us for a long time, as you said. Bharath, let us hear from you as well. What do you see as impact on AV and consumer behavior pattern changes?
Thank you, Sanket. I think cancellation of trade shows across, and the deferred buying from a corporate point of view of the projects, right? No, it would be unfair to say that the effect of COVID-19 has not affected the AV industry. I think, it did affect, and it is going to bring about a lot of changes. I feel even as the world transitions back to its normal state within the next few months, the impact on the AV industry is going to go on for a longer period. Possibly, right, to get back to regular operations, probably in a year's time. and face-to-face meetings, right? And to the limitations that we are dealing with social distancing during setups and work. A number of companies have shifted their work focus and technology to the future with services such as video conferencing, live streaming, remote simultaneous interpretations, right? So these solutions are directly targeted for individuals working remotely, bringing a sense of ease and comfort during this time. And it doesn't seem that the use of these options will decrease once this crisis passes, but rather, right, they're going to become a permanent mainstream solutions available to all. Tools that have emerged but not necessarily been implemented by many firms in India will now have more prominence, such as augmented reality, digital signage, which can support businesses to share their message, okay, in the time of social distancing without the stress of human interaction. The surge of remote capabilities across the country couldn't have come at a better time for businesses interested in wanting to promote innovative solutions. With respect to the consumer behavior, I think a general requirement which is seen emerging is keeping the business communication on, irrespective of workplace, and equipping existing workplace with technology to enable effective communication. Sectors like government that Vibhor pointed out, okay, medical, telemedicine, right, enterprise, are looking at having infrastructure to keep them connected to work, business continuity, irrespective of the situation like pandemic. From a pro AV perspective, we already have solutions, right? Products that can build such digital facilities with ease of communication. Subject to that, we have a digital infrastructure in place. A few other emerging trends that we see across sectors are proactive management of facilities, including AV, seamless technology usage with less human interference, automation. There's also going to be an increase in the IoT solutions to create an integrated environments. Over to you, Sanket.
Well said, Bharath. I think that brings us to a very relevant and important subject of, do we have the digital infrastructure to enable us to do many things that we want to do in future. Aditya, would you like to add to the views shared by co-panelists, and also, as work from home is the need of the hour, how can organizations and individuals gear up for it? And do we have the digital infrastructure in place to enable productive work from home? Over to you, Aditya.
Sure, Sanket. So first of all, Sanket, thank you for hosting all of us, and it's really nice to probably share the platform with all our industry colleagues and share what our thoughts are on the current situation. Coming to your question, from an impact on AV industry perspective, I think all the panelists have covered very valid point. The points on projects getting deferred. So I believe that there would be certain industries for on which the impacts would be a little longer. Especially industries like hospitality, travel, cinema, theaters, etc. And there would be other industries where I think the impact would be shorter, and probably we would have a lot more opportunities on that side, especially corporate and government sector. But from a consumer behavior standpoint, I think one thing which will definitely become a new normal thing is people will be a lot more cautious in terms of parting with cash. I don't think we will see cash coming in quickly. And we will all have to be very robust to tweak our business models around the same. If we are still going to wanting to do the traditional capex kind of model, I think we will face tough times. We will have to evolve our business models for sure to navigate through this situation. I also think as Kaushik kind of pointed out, people will become very I would say mindful of their discretionary spends. Managing the P&L, managing the financials would become very key. Especially in the short term, I think survival is very key. I think from a technology standpoint as well, but you would see transformative changes coming in. I think voice over touch is something which we will see in the long run coming in more and more in multiple types of solutions. And I think there would be a genuine demand for those kind of solutions in the market. Apart from that, as industry folk, I think this is a tough time. And please, remember, I think moving the needle from 0 to 1 would be a time when we will face our most challenges. I think once we have moved the needle to 1, I think we will see, probably a better rate of growth. But I think the biggest challenge would be how do we, actually come out of this lockdown, and how do we start moving towards that 0 to 1 kind of thing. Once we do that, I think the pace of growth would be a lot faster. uh, Apart from that, but I think every situation, as a lot of people say, right, every situation, every tough time, gives rise to a lot of opportunities. And I think not all is gloom and doom. We will see a lot of opportunities in the short term as well as in the long run for our AV industry. As you pointed out, and a lot of people on the call, panelists also pointed out, work from home, right? So what we are doing right now is the new normal, right? Isn't it? We all are kind of working from home, remotely, doing this webinar instead of Sanket hosting us for a coffee, right? So this is absolutely a new normal. So from a work from home perspective, I think in the short run, uh, what we can do is whatever types of bundles I think we can offer to the market would become the first action items, I would say, for us, to move it from 0 to 1, right? One good thing about those bundles would be we have a fantastic, I would say, fantastic, way of reaching out to end consumers, via our online platforms. The brick and mortar business may still struggle a little bit, but definitely, through the online platforms, reaching out to those guys, small package solutions would be a good way to go. uh, in the long run, I think IT is already a very strong backbone for us. And AV industry as a whole would have to figure out a way as to how to tap into that IT infra, or to put it very simply, how do we piggyback on the IT infrastructure setup. The more closely we work with the IT backbone, I think the more and more opportunities we will see for us, whether it is work from home, or other solutions, right? So I'll give you a very example. I'm very fond of giving examples. I'll give you an example, right? So early, probably late 90s or early 2000s, we suddenly saw a boom in laptops, right? So any new joiners nowadays, any new joiners who joins an organization, as part of his onboarding process, he's given a laptop, right? I don't think that day would be far when, along with the laptop, he will also be given a home connectivity solution to say, hey guy, take this solution, go and implement it. It's plug and play, and you're all set to do your meetings from home. So that's what my perspective is. Obviously, work from home is a big trend, but still I believe work from home would be there. But it does not mean that offices or physical meetings will shut down completely. uh, we would have heard a lot of recent announcements from the IT giants like TCS, HCL, etc. Saying that they're reducing their facilities. But they're trimming down the area, the spaces that they use in terms of their facilities. What I think is definitely the facilities, the spaces will reduce, the spends on those items will cut down, but those reductions will probably be more from permanent desks as positions. So people have permanent desks, right, named boards, etc., where they go and sit. I think those will convert more to hot desks, and it will be very limited in numbers. What we would probably see is a rise in meeting rooms there, because uh, most of the meetings will be doing from home. But if we are going to office, we would I think primarily be going to office only to do a meeting which requires in-person presence. With that, I think the current numbers of conference rooms or meetings rooms or huddle space may not be able to cater that kind of demand, because people coming in are not really coming in to sit on their desk. Probably they're coming in only to do short meetings which requires in-person presence, or some other forms of meetings. But I think that may be an opportunity we will see. Only time will tell. It's just a perspective which I think I have. uh, Apart from thing, what work from home has seen is we are part of multiple WhatsApp group, right? We would have also noticed that while we're working from home, people are sharing recipes of their cooking. uh, that gives me an idea that probably there would be a significant boom in the number of content creators that we have in India, right? So people sharing recipes on YouTube, creating their channels, or pursuing their other hobbies and passions. I really believe that content creation will be a rise. And as AV guys, we need to figure out how we tap that opportunity, probably in the form of some radio and broadcasting bundles, or some other technology. I think panelists also talked about online education, right? So those will be the opportunities which I think will come our way. And those opportunities would not be small opportunities. I think the boom that side will really be big. I would also want to cover, from a so we talked a lot about enterprise business, right? But I also think brick and mortar business will see a dramatic change. Already brick and mortar businesses we're seeing a lot of challenges from the online side of business. But now I think there is a very big likelihood that they would go to the Eureka Forbes model, or as I like to call it, D2D for D&D. That is door to door for demo and delivery. That would essentially mean that people would not want to venture out, to buy their equipments, right? So they would want somebody to come in, give the demo, and if possible, place the order, take the money, everything there. So I think brick and mortar would probably move towards that. Another thing which I think which will be important for rental companies, like see rental companies, the equipment exchange hands, right? And people are very, very, very nowadays, that of touch, right? So where a particular thing has been, so that will again be a cause of concern. So I think the earlier the better, if the rental companies kind of adopt some measures in terms of how do they do fumigation or sanitization of the equipment before it goes out to the market and after it comes back from the market. Being COVID compliant, I think can or may become an IOC kind of a certification, where having this processes as part of your regular operation will become a very, very new normal. So I think overall not a great situation to be in for all of us, but obviously I think there are a lot of positives which will come out also of this. As Vibhor said, I am also not a very pessimistic person. I feel a lot of opportunities will come out of it, and we will see that giving a very solid amount of business to the AV industry in the long run.
Thank you, Aditya. I think you shared quite a few new ideas. I think being a finance guy, you started with cash being the king and you managing cash, but innovative models of capex versus opex, or monetizing the equipment that you sell through advertisement, through other tie-ups, third-party tie-ups, can be a way forward, at least for the year. And as you said, Q1 is all about survival, Q2 about stabilization, and Q3 about adoption, and maybe then Q4 onwards you can talk about growth. Right now it's all about survival and stabilization for next Q1 and Q2. Also, work from home is a very, very important subject. We all have experience for last couple of months now. Anybody else from the panelists would like to add to the point Aditya made from about their experiences and their takeaways for work from home?
So Sanket, I would like to add a brief point. So if I talk about remote space collaboration, so this revolution is going into a hyperdrive, I must say. You will see a lot of OEMs in the coming months coming out with cloud-based VC solutions, both over desktop and mobile versions. Also, you'll see a demand for good quality UC headsets. So already, a lot of OEMs are working on these kind of things. So this will be the bare essential kit for any employee working in an IT sector or maybe in an enterprise sector. Then I think Aditya touched on the brick mortar stores. So obviously, digital and online marketplace will replace these kind of stores. And this will certainly have a negative effect because assets like office, showrooms, retail stores, they'll sort of, there will be a limitation. So there'll not be much expansion. I think for some time after the COVID, consumers and businesses will be comfortable, working in a virtual environment where there is little to no human interaction. Well, one thing which certainly is going to happen as a technology, and that is where the AV brains can work, is the VR and the AR immersive experience focus. So if you remember a decade ago when I talked about VR and AR technologies, they emerged and they sort of generated a lot of fanfare in the tech community. And these companies raised some investments too. But however, because of the crude nature of the technology, these investments soon died down. I think post COVID, a lot of new companies will focus on developing hardware and software for to improve the current state of the AR and the VR technologies. And this will certainly extend into businesses within enterprises and offices. So I think this trend would certainly affect in a positive way to the AV industry, and there'll be some new opportunities for the AV industry. That's it.
Yeah, thank you, Vibhor. I think we also as a company have been like asking our team leads, why can't your department work from home? Like we are asking, why do you need to come to office? And that's been a tremendous shift in our own thinking. Earlier, it was work from home was not considered or looked at very positively internally, at least at Xtreme Media. And that's this is the change that has been brought about by COVID. And I think it's a positive change, which should allow us to, I think, hire talent from anywhere. You don't have to be in Mumbai or any metro city if you can work from home. And especially for mothers and young adults who have responsibilities at home, they can do justice to work as well as at work. So yeah, I think it's a new normal, and I think a lot will emerge in the coming days and months and years.
Sanket, I just wanted to add a point.
Sure,
I think, I think digital signage and touchless interactivity will see a huge boom in coming days. Because I mean, just imagine, I think the whole digital signage will get redefined. I think it would go to a level of, digital signage will not be restricted to just the usage within the campuses that they're deployed. I think it'll go to smaller devices like your phones, like your tablets, and they will be repurposed in a way that for a student, when you wake up in the morning, perhaps there'll be a very specialized schedule for that particular student, him or her, to what is to be done for the day. For an employee, perhaps a specialized message meant only for that employee from HR or something like that. So I think digital signage will go to a completely different level. Of course, I mentioned artificial intelligence, gesture-based technologies, voice, unified communications. I think these are the things of future that will take shape.
Yeah, I would.
Exactly.
I would add on to what Kaushik's saying, that software, how you manage your business, and the use of more software to assist people in working remotely. So new project management software, HR software. I mean, we have introduced an HR software in our company which geo-fences. So people log in from home and we know that they're working from home, that they're actually there and not in the supermarket or somewhere else. So I think that's going to software is also, which I think Kaushik's alluding to, a lot more push technology rather than pull technology in digital signage and other areas. I just wanted to just close off with one thing that I forgot to mention before, and that is that you mentioned that life is going to change greatly post. Our social life is going to change greatly. Yes, it will, but I think in a very positive manner, we're still going to go to the movies. We're still social animals as people. We have to get together. We're just going to do it a bit more smartly. And I think, yes, a lot will change until we have a cure or a vaccine for COVID. But I think we will certainly find a way of going back to, I mean, Bharath and I were talking, we're very good friends, and we actually had a dinner engagement together just before the lockdown, and the lockdown came and it was cancelled. But the first thing we spoke about was, when are we going to get out to dinner? And I think, things on that side, they will come back. We will be able to socialize. We're just going to do it a bit smarter.
Yeah, I was waiting for somebody to say that we are, We are a social animal. Yeah, that was the question I was actually hinting at. Like, are we really going to be sitting at home? Obviously, we can be more productive. Some habits will change, but there will be. It's not the complete doomsday scenario yet that everyone is predicting. Um, uh, I would like to just remind all the attendees and participants, if you have any questions, please enter those questions in the chat window. We will be able to take few of them. I think we are running slightly late, so maybe 2 or 3 questions is what we will be addressing. So please put down your questions and we will try to take it up as many as possible. Slightly switching the gear and looking at the positives. The deglobalization trend started before COVID. I think with the Trump and with a lot of European countries coming up with tariffs and anti-China sentiments and things like that. After the COVID, I want to ask: Can India uh, become an alternative manufacturing hub for the world? Can India take advantage of this trend? Um, and what is the impact of this on your business? Bharath, if I can
Yep.
take
Thanks.
your views on this.
Yes, Sanket. Sanket, electronic hardware manufacturing and Digital India form a crucial part of Make in India initiative. We as AV industry would fall under electronic sector design and manufacturing, which is ESDM. And as of today, and the recent report that we have, right, we lack a level playing field vis-a-vis competing nations on account of several disabilities, which render domestic electronic hardware manufacturing uncompetitive. These include lack of adequate infrastructure, domestic supply chain and logistics, inadequate components manufacturing base, limited electronic design capabilities, availability of quality power, and the cost of finance, to name a few. I think, however, manufacturing of mobile handsets, okay, LCD, LED TVs, and LED products in the country has gone up, okay, since 2014. Okay, I mean, from just about 87 lakh units to 1.64 units in 2017-18 due to the schemes, okay, under the national policy of electronics. So in India, still in India, basically, we still need the entire value chain of EDSM, including core components and the materials, to increase the domestic value addition. Without this, the cost of goods produced will still be higher if economies of scales are not achieved. As per updated framework, okay, that we have in 2019, okay, there are provisions and schemes, okay, including development of infrastructure outline. So we need to wait and see how this all come to effect and takes up the priority. As of now, till the ease of electronic manufacturing comes into effect, we would remain import oriented, okay, business, okay, catering to the domestic market. Over to you, Sanket.
Right. I think some of it, the incentives are required for a lot of manufacturing to move into India, like maybe custom to start with. I think India is a big enough market, but as you said, level playing field needs to be created for us to be more competitive in the manufacturing. Vibhor, do you have your views on what you'd like to add on this?
Yeah, sure. So if you talk about, what are the initiatives being taken by the government? Well, to be honest, it's too early to comment at this situation, how it will affect the AV industry, because the scenarios are changing every day. And if the lockdown is extended, it sort of is going to change. But I think, however, based on some facts, if we look at a positive outlook, we can say that the government has formed an economic task force which is working on certain relief packages to overcome the coronavirus pandemic. So it has announced a various of measures. So one of them is the food security for 800 million people, extra funds for healthcare, sector-related incentives, and tax deadline extensions. In fact, on the 27th of March, if you remember, RBI announced to make available 374,000 crores to country's financial system. So these are sort of positives. And if I talk about the new move of the government, they are mainly positioning India as an alternative to China, which means if they attract this foreign investment, they've been talking about clearance in 3 months and no red tapeism. So if this happens, it will certainly attract infrastructure requirements. And if I talk about infrastructure, obviously AV would be required over there. So which means post-COVID, I see some investments happening in the following areas. So there'll be investments in science and technology. So obviously AV would be required over there. If I talk about foreign investment coming into India and setting up manufacturing plants, smart city projects would pace up. So already there are a lot of smart city projects happening and some in the pipeline. So it will, come at a fast pace because they have to ready it. Then I think there will be a new requirement of disaster management centers, because that'll require a fair bit amount of AV, basically NOx and those kind of things. Healthcare, yes, a lot of investment is going to happen from the government on the healthcare sector. So if you look at last year about 13 AIMS hospitals came across India. So there are many more to come in the pipeline. So which means certainly there will be activity happening and AV would be required. Education, if I talk about, so I've referred in my initial comments about students now having more of online courses. So if I talk about India, it's been the fastest to adapt digitalization. And I think in the years to come, this digitalization will be adapted in rural areas as well. So which means certainly there will be requirements in schools and colleges to create AV setups to handle these kind of, relay sessions. But yes, having said that, I think non-critical projects like convention centers, like art galleries, like museums, they will certainly take a back seat. But the positive news is, which I hear from a lot of nodal agencies whom I've been speaking to, like the PWDs, CPWDs, I feel that because of the upcoming state elections in 2020 and 2021, states like UP, Bihar, West Bengal, there will be a lot of projects which are right now underway. They will certainly progress, and I think things should get back into pace. So this is my optimistic expectation that things will move. It will certainly take a little bit of time, and I think Q1 is already lost. Q2 certainly will be a warm-up period. Things will start moving from Q3 is my expectation.
Okay. Aditya, I know Harman has a big setup of manufacturing. So your views on government sector and Make in India?
I think Sanket, we pointed out that Make in India initiatives are there, and government is trying its level best to make sure that we kind of become the manufacturing hub of the world, right? So I will share probably a few positives and negatives from my experience. See, but there are obviously a lot of positives of manufacturing in India, right? So we talk about availability of cheap labor. So labor cost in India is probably the cheapest amongst in the world. Probably cheaper than China. uh, when we talk of technical know-how, I think India is one country which kind of marries a good intellect, good technical know-how with cheap labor. So that kind of brings down the cost of production. Also, government in the past, and there are all obviously a lot of currently running policies as well of the government, where they kind of offer multiple forms of incentivization, whether it is in the form of duty drawback, or in the form of exports that you do, or in the form of capex that you invest. So in that form, government actually incentivize both central and the state governments incentivize by direct cash deposition, deposits into your bank account. So there are multiple incentive schemes and policies that the government run. And another good thing is we have a very, very healthy, I would say, indigenous demand. So whatever we do manufacture, you would see, because due to sheer population, you would see a lot of demand generated internally as well. So these are the good positives that we really have. But there are negatives to manufacturing in India as well, or there are, I would say, hindrances to manufacturing in India as well, which I think can only be solved in the long run. Bharat touched upon the availability of components. If we start manufacturing in India, but if the components are still being imported from China, it will defeat the purpose. So until unless we have kind of an end-to-end indigenous system which manufactures the components as well as the assembly, then it would actually make sense. Otherwise, if we kind of do assembly in the name of manufacturing, then probably it will defeat the purpose. Another thing which I think needs a radical change from a government policy standpoint is probably the land acquisition model. Today I would say land acquisition for setting up any manufacturing any manufacturing setup is like a time taking and a painstakingly energy sapping activity. It's not easy to acquire land to boost the economy. It's not easy. There are a lot of political situations, political issues which arises with that. Apart from that, one thing which kind of is pushing the government back in terms of stopping those incentives is what WTO, World Trade Organization is actually taking note of the government, state government, and the central government incentivizing manufacturing processes, setting up SEZs and special economic zones, etc. So what happens is WTO is of the view that especially not for indigenous consumption, but when we are exporting, when exports are happening for India, from India, if the government is subsidizing those imports by giving tax free zones, or by giving direct cash deposits to their bank, uh, the WTO is firmly of the belief that they are not bringing in a level playing field with the Indian exporters, and there's a lot of pushback from WTO to but to the on the Indian government to kind of stop those incentivizations. This is a recent development. We don't know how it will be taken or how India will respond to that, but the short term impact of the same has been the policies, the incentivization policies, which were supposed to be go live in this next 2 or 3 months, have been currently put on hold. So I don't know, it could be a mix and match of also fact that government probably wants to pump more money into the COVID fund rather than but giving incentivization. So there could be multiple combinations, but that's also one setback. Bharat also touched upon the borrowing cost. Borrowing cost in India is probably the highest in the world. People are used to borrowing at 1 or 2%, not at 9 and 10%. So that also is a deterrent. Uh, there are a lot of unknowns as well, Sanket, in this. I think we don't know how the geopolitical situation will pan out. I'm no expert in politics, but there's also a talk that probably there would be a European Union kind of I would say merger, or collaboration or coalition between the Southeast Asian countries, excluding China. I don't know if that works. But having said all of these things, I think we have a short-term solution which is there in our hand. So I'm sure a lot of you would be knowing it. I think at the moment, if manufacturing setups are going to move out of China, I think the preferred destination would be Vietnam, because they have a lot more favorable policies compared to India. But if things are going to Vietnam, I think it in the short term it is good for India as well, because imports from Vietnam are duty free for India. Quality is tend to be as good as what we have currently. So those things probably we will see in the short run. In the long run, I would say a lot more things would have to be ironed out before we really can think of being a manufacturing hub of the world rather than the assembly hub of the world. So that's my view, Sanket, on the manufacturing bit.
Yeah, I think quite a relevant points you brought up. I think China has been incentivizing exports forever. They're the kings of export incentives for the local manufacturing, and that's how they got so much manufacturing from different countries to China. And I think world has realized that, and a lot of anti-dumping duties have been levied by
Yeah.
your US and European unions to counter that.
Yeah.
But I think the time will see, with the time will tell how and what direction in future this thing moves in. The thing that is going for India is obviously the local consumption, and as you
Yeah.
said, um, policy stability of is the most important thing, in addition to availability of finance, land, labor laws, and technology know-how. But I think stability in policy making and knowing what will be the law going forward is something that every manufacturer would look for before making a large investment. And I think that's what I think our country's government should strive for, to bring in that stability of policy making and giving the confidence to the international investors and manufacturers that they can invest without the fear and without fear of unknown. So I think, yeah, these are some of the points I think well raised by the panel. Um, Kelvin, as everyone knows, you have quite a few projects with government, and in this environment, I think there's a hope that government will spend more to revive growth. Um, so, what are your views on this? What are the segments that you see the investments will increase from the government sector, and how we in AV community can benefit from these investments?
Oh, that's a very difficult one to actually really answer at the moment. It really depends on where money has to be diverted to. The government has, if you take, for instance, the government of Dubai at the moment, one of the reasons Dubai is in such a difficult situation is that all government funds are getting invested in 2020 Expo. So government spending has stopped. Now, I have a suspicion that the same thing is going to happen here, that the government is going to be incredibly short of money. The exchequer is not very rich at the moment, and that money is going to have to go to supporting COVID initiatives that they've announced, and to reviving, certainly first of all, the migrant labor problems and the agricultural industry back to an ability to cope and continue to feed us. So I mean, we're still being pushed very hard on our government projects, but I think there will be specific ones which will get pushed forward because there is a political meaning behind it. But I think we're going to see a drop in government funding in terms of new projects, and that will last for a little while. I think what's more of a concern for me also is that the government is not extending a hand to us in any way as small to medium-sized businesses. We are falling into a trap at the bank when the bank says, yes, please, you can defer your interest payments for 3 months, but they're compounding that interest and you're actually ending up paying 2 to 3% more over the lifespan of your loan. There is nothing actually being done at all for small to medium enterprise businesses. And I think that's where a lot of the Western governments have provided wage subsidies to maintain and keep people in work. They're supporting and ensuring that the business economy can restart. I don't know. I have a suspicion that we are going to have to look at our staffing levels. I have a suspicion that we're going to have to look at huge efficiencies within our businesses in order to be able to cope within the cost structures that are going to exist post-COVID. So, yes, I agree with a lot of the things that Vibhor mentioned in his comments to this. But I have one question for Aditya that I'd like to direct to Aditya. Aditya, why do we not consider manufacturing for local consumption? Isn't that the place we start? Isn't that the place we start to build from? We have a market of 1 billion people. I don't know. I've always wondered the answer to that. There was also one other thing I wanted to say. I mean, I'm really intrigued to see the number of digital signage hand sanitizer units now being offered in the market. I'm interested to see how many AV companies are offering digital scanning thermometers. People certainly picking up the ball and running with it. But back to my question, why are we not manufacturing for local consumption?
So Kelvin, I think a very valid question. Now, I think it becomes a matter of purely cost, right? What we have seen in the past is, if you're importing components from, countries outside India and you manufacture it, versus, you importing the same thing from Vietnam, it is always more cost effective to import it from Vietnam. And we also need to understand that, the exports from China has not stopped. Not stopped at all, right? So but there would be situation where people will only compare cost, right? So if it is not cost effective, why would people buy it? People will absolutely not buy it, Kelvin. That's my only concern. And if there is a lot of pressure from WTO on the Indian government, like they're doing with the Chinese government as well, and if the incentives go away with with the kind of duty structure that we have, it makes us truly incompetitive, non-competitive in the market. And we are talking about what duty structure? We are talking about something which ranges from 10% to 28%, unheard of. it feels like we are getting we are getting punished for importing, right? So those challenges are there, Kelvin, and obviously at the end of the day the consumer would prefer looking at a most cost conscious I would say options, rather than taking I would say India to his heart and saying no, I will buy only indigenously manufactured products. So I would say that's the thing, but hopefully in the long run we will see more acceptable answers to you, Kevin, in the long run.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Aditya. I think it was a pertinent, a very important point. The market, Indian market, is a very big market to look at, and coupled with that, some of the skills in Indian labor is cheap and skilled, and if that can be leveraged, I think it can become a good, attractive manufacturing hub for many companies. Moving on, I think there are some other industries.
Kevin, you satisfied with the answer, or do you have a follow-up question? Anything?
I'm not, but I think I'll talk to you offline. I think there are ways around that, and I think the government is taking the wrong methodology to, we're an agricultural country. We need to move to become a manufacturing base.
Yeah.
And the government is not making the right decisions. And I think the first step of that is opening up your own market locally. And instead of reversing it, instead of giving people subsidies for exporting, give them subsidies for locally manufacturing and selling. We can pick this up at another time. It's a long discussion.
Sure, Kevin.
Thanks, Kelvin. So moving on, I would like to bring in perspective for different other industries as well. So we've seen government investment. So a couple of other industries that are important for AV, obviously enterprise and corporate industry, and obviously other retail and entertainment and hospitality. So Rajeev, I think you've been working with retail very closely. How do you see retail industry being impacted? Retail and other industries like hospitality, entertainment being impacted through COVID and changes coming in the future because of COVID?
Yeah, Sanket. In fact, retail and digital signage are my favorite subjects. Okay, I've been working with a lot of retail customers over the last few years. I've been seeing how they work very closely. I've been involved in discussions with them on how their customers are behaving and how their industry is shaping up. I, in fact, attended a webinar recently about the the retail industry and the way forward for them. And this is from basically, I'll take a few points from there and kind of repeat them here. They have a lot of concerns. Okay, they were one of the first to shut down, and they feel that they would be amongst the last to open up. Okay, one of the very key points being that social distancing would be very severe. What you could say is the new normal, and they would have to kind of rejig their entire customer experience with social distancing in mind. So be it the way you enter the store, be it the way you handle equipment, how you look and feel at the products, everything is going to change. So they are working on trying to figure out ways and means of trying to give the customer a better experience, but with social distancing, with sanitization, hygiene and everything in mind. So that is where I think the retail industry would be looking at. Hospitality and entertainment, yes, as somebody I think had already said, they would be affected as well. They would have to again look at redoing their interiors, redoing their processes, the people management, because there are places where a lot of people would gather, and maintaining the social distance would be important there as well. Having said this, organized retail where technology has been a disruption or has been a disruptor in this area. Okay, even before the pandemic, there's like digital signage, e-commerce. These things definitely added a lot of new elements to these retail industries, to the retail stores in particular. Okay, so also what happens is disruption is being post-COVID would be driven by the customer behavior or the changes of the behavior of the customers. So with many people quarantined, digital experiences for these companies would be very important. The retail company would have to experience, start implementing a lot of digital experiences in store as well as online. So I think they'll have to start blending in physical and digital experiences for their customers. So we can call it a phygital experience. Okay, so some of these examples would be typically riding on digital signage. So would be endless aisles, it could be magic mirrors for apparel industries. It could be a lot of mobility tools to kind of use in-store mobile apps to study a product feature than to rather handle a product at the store. You can kind of look and feel only if you really require to do it. A lot of shopping aids in terms of shopping apps and all of those would be a need of the hour. A lot of customers will already have this, but then they'll have to start deploying it even more. Okay. What is going to happen for the online retailers that they're going to face a lot of competition from the online, the brick and mortar retail would start facing a lot of competition from the native online stores. Okay, something like e-commerce companies. So these companies will have to start investing in omni-channel communication to engage with their customers. Okay. What I mean by omni-channel is a lot of companies, the brick and mortar companies will have to start looking at websites, online platforms, social media, mobile apps, even offline channels like in-store promos, print media. So in whatever way you can engage the customer remotely, the retail people will have to do that. So that would probably be a cue for us as well as IT and AV integrators. We should look at omnichannel to kind of start selling our own products. Okay. Having said this, we as AV and IT channel and technology providers, we will be in a good position. This is an opportunity for us to enable our retail customers to incorporate all these new technologies. Okay. And they'll have to rejig their systems and processes to do this. So I'm also looking forward to kind of engaging with our own customers on these points. You'll be also happy to know that a lot of stores have started opening in some places. Okay, we've received requests from customers where we manage their digital signage networks to start putting up new content in their stores. So Goa and Bangalore are two locations where actually stores are opening. So I think that looks to be a very good sign to me. I'm happy that the stores have opened. I hope it will soon happen all over the country. And I look forward to getting back to work.
Yeah, I think as we mentioned, I think we are social animals, and most of us go to a shopping mall or a retail shop, not just to buy a product. It's as much an experience as buying a product. So a lot of us will go back for that experience to the physical brick and mortar store. And what we can do, as Kelvin said in the chat, a lot of gesture-based technologies will be emerging out of it to make the experience more immersive, more engaging, and without the shortcomings of touch or being physically touching surface, which is unknown. So I think because of the experience and because of the differentiated product that it offers, the physical brick and mortar it's not likely to go away just like that. Obviously, there will be a shift for regular consumption items like maybe FMCG items, or you can order shampoo or soap online, but when you still want to buy a piece of clothing or wear a shoe, you want to have that experience. So thank you, Rajeev, for your thoughts on this. Finally, Kaushik, I know you do a lot of enterprise business and a lot of AVSIs and other AV industry at large would like to know your experience, your thoughts on how enterprise business is going to be impacted post-COVID.
So I think we're already seeing trends of how spaces will be redesigned post-COVID when they open up. One is existing spaces are already architects are redesigning existing spaces to repurpose them, if you like. So these are already built spaces, and if they can move around furniture layouts and things like that to repurpose them to suit health standards of whatever is required of post-COVID. For new spaces for greenfield projects, and new rooms are being designed with COVID standard, with social distancing in mind. And that there are two schools of thought for this. One is, if you are to maintain the distance, you'll need more real estate space, so you will require larger rooms. So on that side, it's very positive that you will require larger rooms. Uh, Larger rooms will have enough opportunities. Mid-sized rooms will have opportunities, and so on and so forth. Having said that, I think it's also very pertinent that huddle spaces or smaller rooms will possibly go away in the short term. They'll disappear, or they will definitely be repurposed for some other usage. So these are what's coming out. It's too early to forecast what's going to happen. We're only seeing trends. We are talking to architects and PMCs and seeing what they have in mind and how they are reacting to new requirements from customers. But having said that, I am also of the opinion that not everything can be work from home. IT security is a big problem. So definitely for banking and financial institutions,
Kaushik was having a power problem.
Yeah, I think.
I'll
Yeah,
just
guess.
add one thing on to what Kaushik was saying. We were in a meeting yesterday on a project we're working on, and this is a very large meeting room of 50 people for the Prime Minister. And we had a bit of a laugh because when we put the social norms onto that, the meeting room became a 15-seat meeting room from 50. I think there's another thing which I'm talking to architects at the moment is about how do you deal with are we going to go back to individual cubicles and no longer have open workspaces? How do we deal with the sea of cubicles or sorry, not cubicles, but workstations that we have out there? It is interesting that a lot of recent projects have been working on movable spaces so that we can move tables around and moving away from cubicles, or workstation cubicles, sorry. So I think those are going to be some major areas that things change. And of course, the thing is that everything we're talking about equals an increase in cost. If we need more floor space per individual employee, then the cost of operating your business is increasing. When in India, the whole nature of it is to squeeze people into the smallest space possible to save cost. So I think those are going to be some things that are going to challenge us as well as we try and look at the new normal and see how the world needs to get put back together again.
I think we have Kaushik back. Kaushik, do you want to add to the subject?
Yes, my apologies to the group. I just lost power and take some minute for it to come back. But yeah, I was just talking about how enterprises are reacting to the post-COVID scenario. And I think I guess I just lost power when I was saying that I don't think all opportunities can be or all can be done from work from home. IT security is a big thing, and especially for banking and financial institutions, it definitely has to be in a secured space, in a secured environment. So in a sense, any space that has a larger population density is going to see a dip in business. I mean, Aditya mentioned cinema, theaters. We all know, restaurants, hospitality, the airline industry, travel industry, etc. Anything which has a large population, live events, so on and so forth, are going to see a decline in business in the short term. But I'm very optimistic about enterprise spaces. They will just adapt to a new normal, and they would definitely come back to business at the soonest.
Bharath, do you want to quickly add something to the final thoughts? You're the last one. We are running out of time. We are quite late, but we'd like to get your thoughts before we go to Q&A.
I think, Sanket, it's basically going to be right. Occupancy planning is one of the biggest concerns that every workplace is going to have. Like, for example, from everybody wants to know what individuals are assigned to which floors and which buildings right now. I mean, it starts with, keeping the employees safe, to understanding the utilization rates of the floors, okay, to keep the costs in control, from creating the social distancing floor plans, okay, and helping businesses to continue, continue their, seamlessly. So I think, right, this is going to be a criteria for most of the enterprises right now. How do they keep the business continuity going on, and what are they going to do with the available resources that they currently have?
Okay. Thank you, Bharath. Thank you all. I think we have only 3 minutes left of our scheduled time. So one question I think which I thought was most relevant out of all, and which I think is a need of the hour. One of the attendees have asked, what kind of new skills should the new age employee now look at equipping himself or herself with? And should organizations invest into upskilling manpower to meet the new needs of the future? Anyone?
So we
From the
always,
panel? Yeah.
well, very quickly, we always need to upscale manpower. That's an ongoing process for each one of us. That's not going to change.
I would like
think now more so than ever, I think the need for the employees to make himself all the more indispensable. When cash is tight, and when some organizations will look at how to bring costs down, I hope not, but if they're looking at performances of people who are underperforming, I think these are times when an employee needs to think how he can do something beyond the call of duty and beyond what he's expected to do. It's just adding more value, either in terms of upscaling your skill sets or doing something more than what your job demands, would be my quick view on that.
I would like to add here.
Yeah, Rajeev, go ahead.
So basically what happens is now we have a very clear set of requirements that we would be able to lay down, on a drawing sheet or something. A lot of companies or whatever companies that you are addressing, whatever kind of customers you're addressing, be it SMB or be it retail, be it segment wise or vertical wise, a lot of customers would require specific solutions. So you have to identify what solutions you are good at and then try and skill yourself in that area. So let's take an example which is on everybody's mind is work from home. So if you have to enable people to work from home, what all is required to be done? There are a whole lot of things. It is not just the devices. It could be the cameras. It could be the cloud services. It could be so many things. So identify what is the best solution fit for you, or what are you good at, and kind of skill yourself at that point on those technologies.
Yeah, I think we're seeing the market change very quickly. I mean, I was talking to several system integrators, and certainly for us, that in the last 2 weeks, we've had multiple smaller companies approaching for assistance in setting up work from home as an enterprise business inside a smaller business. And I know AV companies are being approached as well to assist with the same thing.
Right. As you said, learning is a continuous process. And also we need to, reskilling ourselves. Along with that, we also need to change or be open to accepting multiple roles or attitudinal change, where how you can value add more is the question we need to ask, and how a sales guy can become a pre-sales guy, or a developer can become a tester, or vice versa. So how you can add more skills and take up more responsibility. Moving on, I think last question, I think we run out of time, but just a couple of minutes we'll take to answer these questions. Last question, what are the IT security measures one has to consider while work from home environment? If cloud servers and on-site data center is protected, still what are the chances of hacking, phishing, or attacks? So basically security is a question with regards to security while working from home.
Yeah, so if you want, Sanket, I can take this. Or
yeah.
Maybe you can continue.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I talk about security measures, I think the most important critical element while you're working from home is protect your devices with antivirus solutions. So most of the corporates provide it, but some home users really need to do that. Yes, the need of the hour will be using a powerful VPN service to connect over Wi-Fi. So that's going to be important. As I mentioned earlier, encrypting files would be important as sort of a protocol by organizations. I think the most important thing is updating your programs and operating systems is necessary. We normally get pop-ups, so I think those kind of things are important. Best practices would change your login IDs and passwords for your routers. And last of all, I think when we talk about working from home, so we have these work devices where we use it for social media and we use it for online shopping. So I think we should be keeping these devices separate from the work devices, because that will avoid a lot of phishing attacks, which normally are coming to notice because of extensive use of social media and online trading platforms. So I think those elements, if taken care, you can protect your systems and your organizations from the IT phishing attacks. So that's from me.
Somebody wants to add or add on to what to this point?
Vibhor has covered a lot of it. I mean, those are the right points.
All right. So I think the final, I think this one question, which I really feel like we should take it up as an AV industry. The question goes like this: are we still going back to conventional AV and caught up in that story? So the question is: are we going to go back to the old AV and huddle rooms, or are we prepared to adapt and adopt services and solutions that may not be conventional AV per se, specifically on IoT and smart workspaces and automation?
That's a definite yes. There's no choice. The paradigms are going to shift. And we all have to be, as we mentioned earlier, agile. We need to take our skills, our knowledge, our capability, our product knowledge, and turn that into new solutions for our customers.
I think that change was inevitable. It's only a matter of time that it would have taken for it to take effect, and COVID has just been an instance in which probably this got hastened up. So it's a definite yes, and that is the future.
Yeah, technologies in AV, IT, networking, a lot of software have been merging over a period of time. I think that will probably it's time for us to kind of adopt new things and learn new skills.
Change is the new normal.
Yeah.
Change is always the normal.
Yeah. Wow, I think it was an amazing power-packed session. I think the bottom line is that we all need to be updated. We all need to be agile, and we need to be together more than any other time as an AV industry to sail through this. I would like to thank all the panelists for their wisdom, for their time. And I would like to thank all the participants for making it exciting for us and engaging. So thank you, everyone. Be safe, be healthy. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sanket.
Thank you.